This is Joe narrating a PowerPoint in Social Studies. It's Lesson 5 in U.S. History on page 438 in the Kaplan book. It deals with the Cold War and the Civil Rights era. These events occurred after World War II in the United States. The Cold War was a war of politics and political influence in other countries, fought between communist Russia and capitalist United States. The Civil Rights era includes the fight for civil rights of blacks in the United States and also the continuing fight among other minorities for basic civil rights. Here is a map of Europe after World War II. The nations shown in red had come under the influence of communist Russia. The Soviet Union was a aggregate of Russia plus 14 other countries that became the Soviet Union after the war. The nations shown in blue were non-communist countries. The white barrier between the two colors shows what was called the Iron Curtain, which was a not a physical wall but a political wall between the nations. Communism went to battle with capitalist countries in two nations, the first being Korea in 1950 to 1953. Communist North Korea invaded non-communist South Korea. Russia joined the North Koreans, China joined the North Koreans, and the United States joined the South Koreans. This battle continued for 3 years with essentially an agreement that the two countries would be separated by a line drawn roughly at the 38th parallel. Those four maps can be seen drawn on the stones at the Philadelphia Korean War Monument down near Society Hill Towers near the Delaware River. From 1965 to 1975, the Vietnamese War was fought. Again, you had communist influences in North Vietnam battling non-communist people in South Vietnam. China and Russia, communist countries, helped the North Vietnamese, and the United States and other countries helped the South Vietnamese. The United States lost 50,000 soldiers in this war before the United States left South Vietnam in 1973. In 1975, the North Vietnamese declared victory and took over all of Vietnam, both north and south. The Vietnam War was one of the wars, one of the first wars that was shown on TV. There are many graphic images that are burned into the memories of people from the United States, showing the gruesomeness of war, and this influenced many people's decision to oppose the war. For example, here is a officer in the South Vietnamese Army executing a North Vietnamese soldier. This is an image of a little girl whose village was bombed with napalm bombs, and she was burned by the chemical napalm after the explosion. There is a memorial in Philadelphia down at Front and Spruce Street to honor the soldiers who were killed in the Vietnam War. Some of the memorable images from the Vietnam War are engraved on the stones, as well as the names of local Philadelphians who lost their lives in Vietnam. In 1961, a wall was built between two parts of a city. After World War II, Berlin had been split up into 4 different sectors, one under the influence of the French, one under the British influence, one under the influence of the Americans, and one under the influence of Russia, which became the Soviet Union. In 1961, a wall was built between East Berlin and West Berlin, and this made it so that the people could not go back and forth across Berlin, and was mainly used as a prison wall to keep the people of East Berlin inside East Berlin. You can see the no man's land, which is the strip of land between two walls, one on the East Berlin side on the left and one on the West Berlin side on the right. This wall was finally taken down in 1989 when Russian leaders decided to have more transactions with the West, and in 1991 the Soviet Union collapsed and Russia became an independent country, as well as all the satellites nations of Russia, of the Soviet Union, including places like the Ukraine. In the 1960s and 1970s, there were many movements to develop civil rights for the blacks in the United States. According to the Constitution, they had guaranteed voting rights in civil rights, but in practice, especially in the South, there was extensive racism. Schools were segregated into black schools and white schools. Water fountains and public bathrooms were separated into white and black, and this was part of the impetus for the civil rights movement. Some of the leaders of the black civil rights movement are shown here. On the left you have Malcolm X. In the middle you have Rosa Parks. She is a woman who refused to move to the back of the bus when requested, and she was arrested for that, and as a result there was a bus strike where blacks decided not to use the buses until the requirement that blacks sit in the back of the bus was abolished. On the right is Martin Luther King. He was a leader of the black civil rights movement. He was assassinated in 1968. The third Monday in January is a federal holiday in honor of Martin Luther King and the black civil rights movement. Civil rights were also fought for by other groups, and it's an ongoing battle. For example, gay rights are basically the same rights that non-gays have extended to gays, including the right to marriage whoever they want, the right to adopt children, and things like that. One of the first gay rights demonstrations was July 4th in Philadelphia down at Independence Hall, and this is a blue historic marker which marks the site of those peaceful protests. That is it for Lesson 5, U.S. History.